Hey, Kira.
Hey.
So good to see you. Thank you so much for joining me for my very first interview that I'm doing for the Before You Ready series.
Oh,
You're
how
the first cab off the
exciting.
rank.
I know, how exciting. It's always good to go
Perfect.
first.
Awesome. So you are a graphic designer extraordinaire. You're a brand strategist and the founder of Kira Hyde Creative. You're also the founder of the Launch Gals, which is an awesome collective of women who want more out of their life and career. But why don't you tell us a little bit more about who you are, where you've come from, and what you're doing now?
Okay. So as Emma just said, my name's Kira. I am a brand strategist and designer. I have my own creative agency online. So I've got a really small team, and we focus on like websites, branding, social media, and really just helping people take that next step of launching and up leveling. But I am also an Australian, but I travel a lot. I'm from far north Queensland, but I live down in Victoria. And yeah, I'm just super happy to be here.
Yeah, super excited to have you here. So let's start with, I know you started your business quite young. Like, I think some people don't realize that you are very young because you're so mature and you've done so much. So what I want
Yeah.
to ask you is, do you ever feel like that held you back, or did you ever sort of think, oh, I'm too young to start a business, or like I don't have enough experience compared to these people?
Every freaking day. And in fact, it's been an ongoing struggle with myself and my identity for years because like I started university when I was 17. So being from far north Queensland, being down here in Victoria, like I started early. And then I started my business when I was 20. And then, I'm about to turn 24. And I feel like, in most people's eyes, I'm young. I should be out partying, having fun and having adventures. And I've been growing a business and had a really successful business for the past 4 years. So there was pretty much every day during those early days, and even every now and then now, I always think to myself, gosh, I'm too young, I'm not ready. But now I just feel like a 30-year-old. I feel so old. It's ridiculous.
Well, you don't look 30. Yes, you don't even look 24. But like, yeah, I didn't realize when we first started working together, like, because you'd just done so much and you're so talented. But yeah, what was going through your head during those early days? Because you did launch a business, you launched your website. So how did you get over that feeling of like, oh, I'm too young, it's not the right time? Like, how did you break through that?
Wow. I think that it really comes down to how do you break through any fear or any self-doubt in terms of anything you want to accomplish in your life. And for me, it was always just tapping into what was important. And so, yes, I could get bogged down by all of that other stuff, but really if I thought about what was important to me, what I wanted out of life, I wanted to be happy, I wanted to be passionate, and I wanted to serve. I've always wanted to serve people and help them. And so the more I tapped into that, the less my age and the less all of that mattered. So I really just, focused on that and made sure that that's really what drove me. And also honesty as well, though. If you're feeling scared or doubtful about anything, particularly when you're in a place of serving other people, I think it's important to be upfront about that. Know your limits, but work like 3 times as hard to prove to yourself and them that you really know your shit. And I think that's really important. So
Yeah, and
yeah.
you've done that so well. I love the. Are you glad you started when you did? Are you glad you got that head start and started like right out of uni?
That's crazy. You know what? Yes. Yes, I am. Because I started in when I was younger, I was always like, I never have that like, big story, I guess. I'll never have that big story of like, from such a place of despair and then coming out the other end. Like I didn't have that when it came to starting my business. It was more just like, hey, I was 20 years old. I left Australia, moved to England, started traveling, and I just got bored. That was the beginning. And I thought to myself, what can I do? Like, I've got all these skills. I need to do something. I want to do something. So then I started the business and I started freelancing. And I don't regret that for a second. I think that everything that happened and the way it happens, like while I cringe sometimes thinking about how young I was or how naive I was, everything happened for a reason, and I learned so much during that process. Like I aged, so much in just that first year or those first 2 years. I got to meet amazing people, create friendships, like working with you. And I mean, gosh, it served us for years to come. And I'm just so grateful for all of that. So there's definitely there's definitely something great about starting before you're ready, or just taking that leap even when it feels like you probably shouldn't. I think great things can happen from there, as long as you've got your wits about you, and as long as you're doing things for the right reason and you're sticking to an ethical approach, a moral approach, and just being, coming from that place of servitude. And I think that's really important.
I think also just taking calculated risks, like not just being impulsive and just being like, I'm going to do whatever, but it's like you've thought about it, you've weighed up the pros and cons, and you've decided that the pros outweigh the cons. So why not just dive in and see what happens? And, what is the worst that can happen? Most of the time, the worst is not that bad. So just got to dive in sometimes.
No, and I should say that I'm a very practical person. So even, every single decision I make, I'm the queen of overthinking. Like, that's what people know me for. And so when I first moved to England, like, I made sure that I worked bloody hard and I had at least 10 grand in the bank before I did that. When I started the business, like, I made sure that I taught myself enough, or I did courses before I actually sold anything to a client. So you have to take those calculated risks. And I think there's, even if you're not ready, preparing yourself just so you're that little bit ready, I think is super important.
Yeah. And on the flip side, have there been any times that you've regretted, I guess, doing something before you were ready and being like, oh, maybe I should have waited a little bit, or taken a different option?
All the time. But I think that we get so bogged down with our regrets or things that, we wish we didn't do. And I'm big on that. Like, I'm so known to get stuck in that and cringe about the things I did in the past. And but I think that anything that I did, I just have to remind myself why I did it, and I have to just know that even if it was a silly choice, or if I could have been a bit more prepared, like, I just have to remind myself how much I actually prepared in that moment, or how much energy and effort I put into that, and how much clarity I thought I had. And I think that you have to kind of congratulate yourself on even having that little bit of self-awareness during that time. I mean, we're all going to grow, like, we all grow as human beings. So looking back, we're always going to have those memories, but as long as we know that it led us to the right path, we still looked after the people around us in the best way we could, I think then as long as you tick those boxes, it's fine. But yeah, don't live in the regrets too much.
Yeah, definitely. And what about with launch gals? Like, is that something that was a while in the works before you sort of got it out to the world, or was that a pretty quick turnaround?
It's crazy. So before, when I said I never had that moment of despair that then brought me into my business, I actually had that with the Launch Gals. I was in England, totally alone, didn't have any family support, nothing. And I was just a little bit depressed. I did not have, it was really hard being alone and isolated, and I'm very good at that. So it just got to a point where I needed to make some friends and connections. And I just reached out to a couple women that I knew, and one of them was Daniela. And I created the Launch Gals with her. So when I was back in Australia, we just sat down for a cup of tea, and we always knew that we were going to do something together. But we didn't know what it was until we sat down, and I think we were at the Swiss Hotel in Sydney, and we were just in the reception area. I think we had about 4 pots of tea over 6 hours, and we just dreamt up the entire Launch Gals in that one moment. And then within a few months, we were having events, and I think the Launch Gals is another example of, just tapping into that, serving people and helping people, and just using that to guide you and just help you take that leap. Because, I had no idea what I was doing. I never did events before, never knew anything about, any of that. I was really relying on Daniela in so many ways. But it was a spur of the moment thing, but it came out of, it's just served me so well since then. I mean, it's just ignited my life and my connection with people. It's amazing. Yeah.
Well, it's really your passion, right? But it's turned into more than just a passion project, I feel like. And it's probably gone hand in hand with, I guess, your main core business as well, like your design and branding. Yeah.
Definitely. And there's so many, facets of the Launch Gals, the whole word, the Launch Gals. I called it that because I had this obsession with launching, and it obviously reflects off my business, my design business. But I just think, I can't have one without the other. So sometimes, you know, the launch gals, we don't do as many events in a year, and then sometimes one year we'll have heaps. Like, it really just goes in waves, but it's there when we need it, and it's there for the community when they need it. So I think that's really important.
Do you ever get nervous before a launch? Like, you know, say for an example, like when you've just got this new website and you're just about to go live with it, do you sort of have that like mix of like nerves and excitement and like, oh, like what are people going to think about it?
Definitely. I think that, yeah, I do. But then at the same time, I actually think that I'm more excited
Yeah.
because I also know, I mean, gosh, I've been in the branding world for like 4 years now. I know that nothing you put out online is 100% perfect. I know that every single business is a work in process. I know that, you know, there's always going to be people that don't like something, and there's always going to be people that love it, you know. So really, as long as I like, you know, sit in the fact that, you know, is it, you know, targeting the right client, does it tick all the boxes, then I'm just excited about seeing what happens. So I don't really think I get nervous about it, but I think my clients do. And then that's when like I have like these launch sessions, which is really just an empowering chat to just be like, you got this, because you know, we're all nervous about the thing that we want to put out there to the world. And you know, so I don't really feel it with client projects. With my own, hell yeah. But yeah.
And do you think it's ever possible to like to feel 100% ready to do anything? I know you mentioned like with, you know, websites, like nothing's ever like completely perfect. Yeah. So do you think there is such a thing as 100% ready?
I think that, I mean, there is surely, but I wouldn't necessarily trust that. Like if I was feeling 100% confident, I don't think I'd trust myself as much, because, you know, I feel like if I was confident, but I had like a couple fears or a couple doubts, or, you know, I was a little bit nervous, like that's when great things happen. I think that's when, you know that it's important. You know that, like it could be game changing, or, you know, it could make a big impact. So I feel like if you're 100% confident, that's amazing. Good on you. But myself, I know me, and I feel like I'd be worried then, you know. The best things come out of those fears and doubts. And that's the whole point of like, the grass is greener on the other side. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. So I think that if you do feel that, that is awesome. But if you don't feel that, that's also a great thing too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's like regardless of how you feel, you just got to get it out there, you know. And I think it's very rare to feel like, okay, yeah, this is 100% perfect. There's nothing else I would change. Like you can always, you know, change things along the way, and you will. Like,
well, I think you need to have that understanding that things have to change. Like, so if you're like, this is 100% perfect, I'm never going to change this for like 10 years. It's like, well, you're you're in for a rude awakening.
Yeah, you're not going to do very well. Because it has to change, and adapt.
Exactly. Brands need to adapt every single year. Marketing strategies need to adapt every 6 months. So you've got to be prepared for that and have that awareness that, you know, nothing I do is perfect. But I'm going to damn try to make sure that it's, you know, it kind of is. Yeah.
And on that note, at what point in someone's business do you think they should invest in like professional branding? Do you think it's okay to just launch with something that they've whipped up in Canva or... Yeah.
So this is a hard one, because it comes down to the business, it comes down to the budget, and it comes down to how much someone's willing to invest, not just financially, but invest into their brand. I think that it's definitely important to have a strong foundation. So regardless if you're going down the DIY route and you're going to create your entire logo, brand colors, everything on Canva, that's fine. But as long as you've got a solid foundation. So in every single package, every single experience that I give a client, the first thing we do is a brand strategy session, and then it's the mood board. So I pretty much use that for anyone who wants to DIY as well. You know, take that time to really dig deep in terms of your brand strategy. Think about who you are, what you want out of life. Then think about the goals that you might have. Think about the dreams, aspirations, those things that you daydream about that you don't want to tell anyone. Think about all of those things and map that out first. Then think about the type of people you want to serve, and do all of that first. Set that foundation, make sure you have a complete understanding of all of that. and then choose some colors, make your own brand on Canva if that's what you're going to do. But the key is to just set that foundation first, because if you've got that down pat and it's strong, you can't go wrong. You could launch with, a really basic brand, a brand that, you're not super proud of, but as long as you've got all of that strategy, then it's fine, because you can wait a year, and then, get a full rebrand then. But yeah, I think the biggest mistake I see business owners is they start floundering for the first year of business because they just put out whatever and just hope that it works. They don't have a strategy, or they don't work for a plan. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. 100%.
I think it's so important to, set that foundation, and it's the one thing that makes or breaks your business. It's not just a pretty logo and pretty colors. You've got to have the strong foundation.
Yeah, I've always been glad that I invested in professional branding with you for Girl in Progress. But even, when I had my copywriting business, I think investing in that pretty early on, sort of sets the direction that your brand is going to go in. But I think it's fine to, to start off with just something that you've whipped up yourself. But yeah, pretty early on, you want to figure out where you're going and what that's going to look like for your brand.
Exactly. Yeah.
And obviously a big part of doing things before you're ready is just actually getting in and doing the work. So do you have any hacks or any strategies, I guess, you use for not procrastinating on things and just, making sure you show up and say do what you say you're going to do?
Yeah. Okay. So this is always a tricky one. And I feel like it's so multifaceted because on one hand, in terms of just productivity, it's set a routine. Routines are your best friend. Set a routine, but then sprinkle me time throughout your day. So then you're always looking after you, checking in on yourself, making sure that you're connected to everything else. So that would be the main tip, I guess, in terms of productivity, is just, making sure that you go about your day really well. But then one of the things that I always do, it's kind of, is I just check in with myself, and I just have to, if I'm feeling nervous or overwhelmed, or if I'm I work from home. So if I just am in bed and it's 10 a.m. and I'm shit, I need to get up, I just try and think in my head, okay, why am I doing this? Why am I running this business? And just keep reminding yourself all of the things that are important. And if you can put that in your day as well as the routine and as well as everything else, it will just be the biggest game changer in terms of helping you wake up each morning, reminding yourself why you're doing this, keeping hold of that passion. And
just remembering your why and your purpose definitely makes a huge difference, because otherwise you just get so wrapped up in the minutiae of what you're doing and you forget the bigger picture and what you're working towards.
Think about money and let that drive them, and sometimes that does. So if you're a money driven person and you're just ding 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 money bells, it's okay, that's going to get me out of bed today, then awesome, go with it. But for me, if I'm not feeling good, I don't want to work.
Yeah. So I guess with money, it's sometimes more about what it can afford you. It can give you freedom. It can give you the ability to travel, which is the perfect segue into my next question. So I know that you've done a lot of travel. You've kind of lived a bit of a laptop lifestyle. I know you're now sort of a little bit more settled in Bendigo, but for the years before that, you were traveling. So did you ever feel any sort of nerves about picking up and traveling for ages? Is that something that you did before you felt ready?
Gosh, see, I feel I definitely did it before I was ready. I just dove in. I think my first 2 years of business, I went to 20 countries, and I literally ran the business from caravans, bus stops, even airports.
You made it work.
Yeah, I just ran it from wherever I could, chasing Wi-Fi whenever I could get it. But it was exciting. It was exciting, and it was total freedom. And also, I didn't have many expenses as well because I was traveling. So it wasn't as expensive as living in a house or whatever. So
I want to ask you, what is your favorite place that you've been to?
My favorite place that I've been to was definitely Malta. I've been so many places. Germany was amazing. I had a white Christmas, and I was it was incredible. But Malta was probably my favorite place to go to. It was just such a relaxed country. It was beautiful. And yeah, it was amazing for work. I remember when I wanted to like get a hotel, I like emailed ahead and told them that, you know, what I do for a living, and they gave me like a full upgrade because I was going to be put
good.
up.
They probably don't get a lot of like influencers or like,
yeah.
I mean, I think it's becoming more like touristy there a little bit. Like people are starting to discover it, but I've heard it's beautiful.
It is. Yeah. No, I absolutely loved it. It was, yeah, definitely one for the ages. I'll go back.
And do you have any tips for making the laptop lifestyle work, and I guess finding that balance between just working all the time and actually having time to travel?
I think you just answered it. Balance. So balance is key. When you're traveling, it's so important to have a routine. So, you know, for me to successfully run a business, I would always have to work at least 4 hours a day. Like you just cannot, you know, you have to work at least 4 hours a day, particularly in those early days. So I'd set time in the morning and set time in the evening to make sure that I was working. I mean, often I did 8-hour days and still explored and did heaps of stuff, but I'd stay up super late. So it's really just like finding the balance of exploring and not holding yourself back too much, but making sure that you're being honest with yourself and how much you can work with a clear head. So I think that's really important. Yeah. So routine definitely is incredibly important when you're traveling. But yeah, it's also okay to not take a whole bunch of work on as well. It's good to say no to some things just so you can enjoy your life and the experiences that you're embracing, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. There's no point being in this like beautiful destination if you're just like in front of your computer the whole time. Like,
yeah,
you've got to find some balance there. And what would you say to someone, like what's the biggest piece of advice you give to someone who's thinking about launching their brand but is like, oh, I feel like I'm not ready, is putting it off?
Yeah, gosh. I think that first off, figure out why you're putting it off. Like literally figure out why you're putting it off. Is it because of money? Is it because you're working a full-time job and you're scared to quit because you won't have any money? Or is it you're scared of what family and friends are going to think about you starting your own business? Like figure out what it is that's holding you back and then work through it. Because I mean, you could ignore it and you could just like, you know, quit your job suddenly and then start being like, I'm going to be a business owner now, and then frantically start trying to make a business from scratch. You could do that, but that's not smart. Like if you were to think, okay, I'm really nervous about starting the business because financials. So it's like, okay, well, I'm going to continue working in my job for 6 months while doing my side hustle on the side. And then I'm going to go full time in 6 months. You know, like you can, by just understanding what's holding you back, you can put together a plan and kind of a direction or a strategy to help you work through that. Like same with if it's, I have so many people tell me that their husband or their partner or their parents just aren't supporting them on their decision. And that's another thing to work through. Like, you know, chat with them, talk to them, explain it, explain what you want to do, or just show them, prove to them, you know, what it is that you're trying to achieve, and don't kind of give them a choice. Like just prove to yourself and to them and just set out a clear plan no matter what it is. So yeah, look into why you're feeling anxious about it and then yeah, work through it.
Yeah, I think it's so true that sometimes we do have obstacles that we have to work through before we are actually ready, whether that's mental, like mindset, or it's actual physical obstacle. But I think identifying those, and once you identify those, then you're well on your on your way to getting that amazing product or service or idea out there.
Exactly. And that's when the excitement and the enthusiasm and inspiration can come in. So after you've like faced your fears and all of that, then you can really just settle into the fact that, oh my God, I am taking the biggest leap for myself right now. I'm about to take that huge next step and I'm going to follow my passions and I'm going to live my true creative life. And you can like, that's when all of that excitement comes, but after you deal with the crap. But I think, yeah, any business owner that can start with that excitement and not the franticness, like then that's the best thing that you can do.
Yeah, being in that sort of mindset, definitely.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, where can everyone find you? And do you have any freebies that you might like to give away to our viewers?
Of course. I am a big believer in freebies. I think it's awesome. So you can find me at kirahydecreative.com, and you can also find me on Instagram. So either Kira Hyde Creative or Kira with an extra A and then Hyde on Instagram as well. So In terms of freebies, I have a lot. There are so many things, so many ways that you can get some super cool value from me and just help you take that next step. But my biggest recommendation would be my brand audit. I have like created this just multi-dimensional quiz, and it's awesome. And it's got like 5 different answers, and the answers like direct you to free workbooks and free strategies that can help you in whatever area that you're struggling with in business. So yeah, that's on the website.
It's really good. Yeah. I highly recommend it. It can help give you so much clarity. Like, I think I definitely did it before I started working with you. I might have even done it after, just to be like, I'm going to give this a go. Yeah, highly recommend. Well, thank you so much, Kira, for coming on and sharing your passion and creativity and wisdom and your thoughts on all things launching before you're ready.
Thank you so much, Emma. I just love talking to you as always, and I love just the community of women that you're supporting. This is just incredible. I wish I had this type of value and this type of connection when I first started. It would have been a game changer for me.
Same. You know, even just, you know, same as with what you're doing with Launch Gals, like all of these communities of women are just, and this like just being able to pick other people's brains, even though I hate that expression. Like, yeah, it just makes a lot of difference. So I'm sure everything you said today is going to help a lot of people. So thank you so much.